What a lot of people have backwards is that they think motivation is what leads action, but motivation doesn't lead action. There are many ways of kind of tricking your dopamine system into working. The goal itself doesn't lead you out of the desert. Essentially, we have two systems of motivation at play. There's almost like artificial ADHD being enforced in people. What is actually really, really important, or much more powerful, I should say, is identification. This is really interesting to me. My team, that is to say myself in various costumes, only some of them masturbating, give me this report that tells us how many of you watching this are actually subscribed. And according to this report, some of you, for example, my mum, are unsubscribed randomly. No idea how that happens. So I'm going to ask you a favour. That is, just for now, just please check really quickly if you are subscribed, if you are a regular to this show and you enjoy what we do here. It would mean a lot right now because we're approaching a really significant number in terms of subscribers, that being any. So if there is one simple free thing that you can do that would really help me, my team, us, all of us here, which again is actually just me, to keep improving year after year, week after week, moment after moment, month after month, second after second, day after day, and we'll keep that metal barrel out of my mouth, it would be just to subscribe if you can. And if you're feeling really cheeky, maybe hit that notification bell as well. It's the only thing that I will ever ask of you, except for your unwavering attention, love and loyalty, and maybe sometimes money if I'm a bit broke, because, you know, life of a creative is both expensive and pays nothing. Do we have a deal? If so, I promise to keep delivering the best content I possibly can, share all the knowledge and wisdom that I've accrued over the years, and find people more intelligent or nicer or sexier than me to invite onto the podcast who can share their knowledge and wisdom that I myself don't necessarily have. I'm doing this for me, but I really would love it if you could join me along for the journey. Let's get to the episode. The irony of the fact that this is episode 4, and the episode is meant to be all about motivation, and I am struggling to keep myself motivated to actually record the episode, is not lost on me. And I know I have the skills, I have the know-how, I have the information I would need to make this happen. And I am grateful for that, because if it wasn't for it, this would not be happening. This is the third take, and I'm getting worked up before I'm even beginning. And the reason why I'm getting worked up is because I am currently unmedicated, and I'm currently unmedicated because for my ADHD, in case you don't know, the reason why I'm currently unmedicated is because I can't afford my pills. Now my pills are actually not even that expensive. However, it is the fact that I have had so many expenses come out recently, because like a close friend of mine is getting married, which is like, it's all fine, everything's grand, I'm not complaining about life. Life is actually really, really useful for me at the moment. But I would be able to buy my fucking pills if this goddamn fucking bar that I work with would pay their fucking money that they were meant to pay me in March. It is mid-April, and it is hard not to get fucking wound up about this arbitrary bullshit capitalist system that I have to take part in just so I can function. And it makes me angry. It makes me angry, not because I'm neurodivergent, because I know that, look, life is not fair and it is a struggle at times. But what makes me fucking angry is that I have to try and function in this goddamn fucking society, and it just doesn't need to be this way. It absolutely does not need to be this way. There are so many other options if it was just fucking mutually agreed upon that we live in a society to look after each other. This is not law of the jungle. This is not, oh, the strongest survive, and oh, capitalism is about growth and opportunity, and without it we wouldn't be able to ever fucking grow, because we would be able to grow. People inherently want to do things. We inherently want to be able to procreate, live life, and try to enjoy this fucking shit. We have all the chemicals in our system for those things to happen. And motivation is not fucking strongest when it is extrinsically put upon. It is not strongest when you have an outcome goal to try and achieve. Motivation is strongest when it is intrinsic, when it is done for the sake of doing it. And the whole system of capitalism is explicitly that it is extrinsic. And it is frustrating, because I enjoy comedy. I love doing stand-up, and I really like the bar that I work with, but I feel this strong negative emotion towards them at the moment because although I am allowed to do the thing that I want to do, that I'm intrinsically motivated to do, because they are not upholding their side of the bargain, they are impeding other parts of my life that are stopping me from being able to live properly, that are stopping me from being able to just fucking function. And now something that I enjoy is being spat upon by this bullshit system that exists around it that no one wants to be a part of. No one truly feels, or at least I wholeheartedly find it hard to believe that anyone truly feels that this is the best way that things can work, that this is the best way that things can go. And if they do believe that, it's because they lack imagination, or they just fundamentally misunderstand how humans work, or I don't know, I don't know what their motivation is about. But I do know a lot about motivation. That is what this episode is about. So, heavy fucking start, I'm aware, and I apologise for the swearing. No, I don't. I don't apologise for the swearing at all. If you're offended by bad language, then go fuck yourself and grow up. This is the Harlequin Room. It is my world. It is a space where I am essentially giving an open journal. I am doing this podcast because I'm trying to consolidate all the information that I have learned through my years working in mental health, when I was in uni studying psychology, the lessons I've learned in trying to become and survive as a creative, as I've become a comedian, as I have become the person I am. This is something I'm doing for me, but I'm also putting it out there because I have learned a lot along the way, and yeah, I made a ton of mistakes, and maybe I'm not perfect, and maybe I'm not perfect. I'm definitely not perfect, but I might be a couple years ahead of your journey, and maybe I can make the journey for those behind me just a little bit easier. And if I can do that, even if it's for fucking 10 of you who listen to this, even if it's for one of the 10 that listen to this thing, then that feels pretty good. That feels nice. You know what's funny, as you look around this room, you can see all these fucking sponge boards that I've put up around, the like exercise mats that I have got from a friend because things are difficult for him at the moment, and he needed a place to store them. But on the plus side, I can benefit. And you know why I benefit? It's because we help out each other. And that's how humans work. We work best when we're working together. That has always been true. It's how we survived for hundreds of thousands of years. I'm sorry, I will get over the capitalist rank. I'll get over the capitalist rant. But there is a reason why I've got a fucking fist of solidarity tattooed on my chest. I'm a hardcore lefty. I stand by it. And if you disagree, go fuck yourself too. This is episode 4. It is about motivation, and I may have said this at the beginning, but quite frankly, I kind of blacked out a little bit in that rant, so I'm not entirely sure what I said. So in case I didn't, this episode is about motivation. It links heavily towards the episode that came up before it, which is on goal setting and bad metrics. And the reason why it links so much is because a lot of people feel that goals are out there to be achieved, and I said this in the last episode, but goals are not meant to be achieved. Goals are a North Star that we use as a way to kind of guide ourselves on what is the journey. The journey of our lives. And fundamentally, a lot of people have, let me rephrase that. The point of a goal is to kind of, like I said, have a North Star to guide the journey, but the goal itself doesn't keep you walking on that journey. The goal itself doesn't lead you out of the desert. What leads you out of the desert is motivation and discipline. And I would say that those two terms sound like they are distinct they are distinct terms, but they're not. Motivation and discipline are the same thing. They go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. But what a lot of people have backwards is that they think motivation is what leads action, but motivation doesn't lead action. Motivation is what you get once the action has started. Discipline is, I guess in a way, the knowledge of how to activate motivation. There is this chemical called dopamine. You may be familiar with what dopamine is, or you might at least think that you know what it is, but for clarity, dopamine is a kind of reward chemical. Now, for clarity, even more clarity, dopamine is not the reward itself chemical. It is not the chemical you get once the reward has been achieved. That's serotonin. That's the happy chemical. That's the good thing. Dopamine is released as an anticipation of the reward coming. And it is the keep going chemical. It is the thing that goes, ooh, like it's the thing that helps you. It's actually the chemical that gets you up in the morning. It's the thing that like kind of goes, move, motherfucker, move. That's what dopamine is. And when you have neurochemical imbalances like you do when one has ADHD, you can get these kind of dopamine crashes, or it's more like we don't produce it on the right kind of level, which is part of what makes it so hard to get going in the first place. We lack that ignition, get going type thing. And the reason why I explain that is because it is important to understand that motivation and dopamine also go hand in hand. If discipline is the trick of getting motivation going, motivation is just a kind of casual term for what dopamine actually is. It's a brain process. It's the notion that people aren't lazy, they're misguided or inadequately, equipped to weaponize their dopamine, to weaponize their motivation to kind of get themselves going. A difficulty of how this is related to the creative sphere is that in creative work, projects take years, and motivation, as we kind of colloquially understand it, only lasts a couple of weeks. It fades, and so like, how do we keep up motivation? How do we keep re-triggering ourselves? How do we keep going? Essentially, we have two systems of motivation at play. The first is short term. This is called the goal gradient effect. Essentially what that means is the closer you get to a goal, the more dopamine is released into your system and the more motivated you are to complete this goal. It was discovered from this kind of like little experiment with like rats, where they noticed that the closer the rat was to the end target, like the cheese or whatever, the faster it started to move. And you actually see this in like running races as well. You know, it's like you get the initial kind of like gun goes off, you run as fast as you can, and then right at that last second, just before the finish line, people throw themselves forward. We do that ourselves, but like all the time, without realizing it necessarily. And there was actually this quite interesting experiment done as well, where it was they got a group of participants, or two groups of participants, and they gave them those like little coffee card collectors things. You know, the things where it's like, oh, get 10 stamps and you'll get free coffee, right? And one group of participants, they had an empty one, and then they had to fill out the 10. And the other group, they had 12 spots, but 2 of them were already filled in. And the people who had, although technically they both had exactly the same, they both had to fill 10, but the people who had the 2 filled out beforehand, they tended to finish the cards much quicker than the other group. And the reason why that is due to the goal gradient effect. It is the notion that it's already begun, it's already started. We've already kind of kicked off the action, in trying to achieve the goal of getting 10 stamps for a coffee. You've already started, and this creates a kind of psychological pressure to keep going. A positive one. I say pressure, I don't mean that in a negative way, but essentially it is like that law in physics where what is in motion tends to stay in motion, and what is at a standstill tends to stay at a standstill. So that's the goal gradient effect. And the reason why that can be a little bit problematic is because, well, once you achieve a goal, then what?
This episode of the Harlequin Room is sponsored by bathrobes, the at-home attire of the fun-employed or depressed. Comfortable, soft, and equipped with a belt to give you the feeling of a hug you desperately need, or an out if you can find a strong enough beam. Bathrobes, sold everywhere, or sometimes gifted by workplaces that consider a pizza party an appropriate alternative to therapy or a pay rise.
There are many ways of kind of tricking your dopamine system into working, and I'm going to get into those. But what is first really important to understand is that as well and good as it is to have goals in life, what is actually really, really important, or much more powerful, I should say, is identification. identity is way stronger than any goal could ever be. When I say that you should have a goal as a North Star, like what is that that thing that you're aiming towards? That thing that you're aiming towards should be an identity. Motivation can collapse, it can fail, it can have blips, and you will stumble and you will fall. And identity is that powerful thing that will get you to stand back up and to carry on going. It means that once you can identify with an action, that the goal that you do, the motivating factor, I actually wrote this down to make this as clear as possible. Identity gives direction, goals give momentum, and progress reinforces identity. You set small goals, complete them, and each win becomes proof. This is who I am. So instead of saying, become a successful comedian, you start with, I am a comedian, and then you act like it. So that way the smaller goals come in, like write 10 minutes, perform 5 times, put out however many clips onto YouTube and identity and onto Instagram and all those kinds of things, right? All those small tasks, they become fuel for that big, hairy, audacious goal at the end of the road. I'm really struggling to try and stay concise and clear with what I'm trying to say. So instead of trying to speak from the brain, I am going to read my notes out directly so that this is clear for whoever's listening, and particularly for myself when I'm listening to this later. Goals give you a spike, identity gives you consistency. Identity-based motivation works differently. Instead of chasing outcomes, you ask yourself, what does someone like me do? And the answers are things like, a writer writes, a comic makes jokes, a podcaster records. You stop asking, do I feel like doing this? And the motivation then comes from just, this is what I do. It is a really, really subtle shift, but it is really powerful. And I was actually talking to this executive producer about this the other day, and how you can just keep yourself going forever and ever and ever is because you don't see it as a task. If you don't focus on the outcomes, you focus on the processes. The process goals, i.e. write 10 jokes, this, that, and the other, then become what you do on a daily basis. And then when you can identify with these process goals, they become intrinsic to who you are. It is just what you do. So they stop feeling like effort and work. They just start feeling like just what you do in a day. This is just how you function. This is just how you keep going. It's not like, oh, I need to go to the gym so that I can achieve this and get buff. It's just, oh, I've got to go to the gym because I go to the gym. You don't have to stop and question every single little decision. It just becomes encapsulated in who you are as a person. And that's important because if you rely on motivation, you'll stop. Whereas if you rely on identity, you will continue. The power comes from combining these two systems into the fact that identity gives not just direction, but it gives consolidation and reinforcement. Goals give the momentum, and the progress of those goals, those process goals, circle back and reinforce the identity. Like you set the small goal, you complete that goal, and then each win becomes proof of this is who I am. So instead of saying to yourself, for example, in my case, become a successful comedian, you start with, I am a comedian, and then you act like it. You write, you perform, you post clips, you do whatever is necessary because each action strengthens that identity, and the identity then makes the next action that much easier. There is less to process, there is less to consider, it just becomes part of who you are. This creates an interesting bridge, right? Because the ADHD brain and the neurotypical brain are very, very related, but they do work slightly differently. And I think what's really interesting is that we are coming into this kind of day and age where there's almost like artificial ADHD being enforced in people. And what I mean by that is there is an evolutionary advantage of having an ADHD brain. It's just that advantage hasn't existed as much as it did since the agricultural revolution, i.e. like when humans moved from hunter-gatherers to farming society about 10,000 years ago, there was an advantage of having a brain like mine because essentially I am very, very sensitive. Not just emotionally, but I mean I'm very sensitive to my environment around me. I am chronically understimulated. I chronically have lower dopamine levels, which means that I am constantly on the kind of like lookout for things that will spike that dopamine, that will bring me back up to the level of kind of, how do I explain this? It's kind of, there's like a baseline level that's comfortable in terms of excitement, so it's of stimulation. That's the word that I'm trying to look for. There's a baseline level of stimulation that is comfortable to exist at, and if you exist below that line, you will do things that try and bring you up to that line of stimulation. And if you are chronically above that line, you will try and make sure that you control your environment in a way that brings you down to it. So the idea being that people like me, who are not just ADHD brain but like super extroverted, is because we exist below this line, and so we put ourselves in environments that kind of stimulate us and bring us up to this line of comfort. And people who are more introverted, or I wouldn't say necessarily autistic, but how like you see like stimming, when like people get like super overstimulated and they just need to like sit down and be calm and just be like, oh, I need to stay away from people and conversations and all that kind of stuff. It's because they chronically exist above this line and they need to kind of control their environment so they come back down to it, right? So what I was trying to say was, there is an almost artificial ADHD being forced on people in our kind of modern day society, and that is because essentially our environment's becoming louder. They're becoming much, much, much louder. And that is to kind of relate back to my initial rant on capitalism, which I don't apologize for. But you got to think about it like this. To make profit, you need to advertise. You need to market. Like marketing and advertising, they're at the heart of capitalism, right? It's like kind of buy this product, do this thing, right? And the way that things like social media and all that lot work is it's a free service that they sell advertising space, and they can sell more advertising space when there is more attention on their service. So what they want to do is make sure that you kind of keep as much of your attention on their app as possible. Like the fact they want you to open up, that's why you got push notifications, that's why you got this, that, and the other, right? They want you to constantly just kind of keep opening your phone and all that lot. And because, again, then I know I keep coming back to capitalism, but because the nature of capitalism is profit for profit's sake, there is no end point to it. You have to continuously be improving. If a company, from an economic point of view, if a company makes £1 billion, $1 billion, 1 billion Danish kroner, but they could have made 2 billion, that is not 1 billion profit. They are considered to be 1 billion loss because they could have made more. That means that companies are incentivized to carry on growing to their absolute maximum at all times, every single year, forever and ever and ever. If the company's basis is that it needs more of your attention so it can sell more advertising space, that means they are not coming for some of your attention. They are absolutely required to be coming for all of it. Absolutely every single moment of your attention. So our environment is increasingly, especially, well, not just especially in the West, just all over the world, our environment is increasingly becoming more and more loud. It is increasingly trying to grab your attention everywhere. Our environment has become so loud that there are now companies that exist purely to say, hey, we're going to make your phone dumber. We're going to make sure that you don't keep getting attacked by everyone else. The guarding of your attention is also something that is now becoming commodified. Like, it's just, it sounds almost insane or silly when I say it out loud like this, but that is what's going on. And I also think that is the reason why there is such an inflation of people who feel like they have ADHD well, that was actually it. So why there's so many people who feel like they have ADHD is because there is this kind of artificial enforcement where I get overstimulated, or I don't get over, I do get overstimulated too, but I find it hard to control my attention in a loud enough environment, even when that environment is fairly quiet. And even if that environment is completely quiet, because if something is completely quiet, that's also distracting, because like I said, my brain feels like it's on fire at times. And for other people, it's the same kind of thing. they're just being bombarded constantly. Like, have you ever, I don't know if anyone's ever downloaded the Duolingo app. Like, it became a meme, and then they leaned into it, like, heavily. I started using it again recently, but fuck, man, their push notifications are aggressive. Really, really aggressive. And I like, to the point that, like, they do it jokingly a lot. But, you know, like, they all these systems, these dopamine things, like the ways that you can trick yourself into kind of staying motivated and staying disciplined on a task, actually follow the Duolingo model, but do it for yourself and do it under your own control, where, you know, like, they'll do counter streaks, like, so, you know, like, come back every single day, because the longer your streak is, the more kind of loss aversion you'll feel, where it's like, oh, I can't give up now because I'm so close to this goal that if I give up now, I feel like I'm going to lose something. Like, sorry, a lot of multiple thoughts again. And then they'll give you, like, in the Duolingo thing, they'll give you, like, free streak freezes, because they know if you lose that streak, you're less likely to kind of carry on with it. So they'll be like, oh, don't lose your streak, come back to us today. Oh, don't worry, we protected your streak for free. And it's just kind of, it's almost quite insidious when you think about it. They're just doing everything they can, using every technique known to man to keep you learning languages. Which sounds silly, but it's just what they do. Which actually, I guess, kind of leads me into, how do we trick ourselves into, well, how do we use these, what's known as dopamine loops, to our own advantage? Because, basically, dopamine loops work like this. You got cue, action, reward, reinforcement. And social media exploits this loop perfectly. You know, notification, check phone, possible reward, likes, comments, shares, this, that, and the other. Those anticipation of reward is where the dopamine comes up, you know. So, like, remember what I said, is dopamine doesn't come from the reward itself, it comes from the anticipation of the reward. So what keeps you checking your phone all the time is not that you know that there's going to be a notification there every time, it is that there might be a notification there every time. And funnily enough, actually, I don't use Instagram or social media all too much, because I can't handle push notifications. I'm just far too sensitive to them. And because I leave it so long, I know for a fact every time I open it, I'm going to be confronted with a shit ton of messages and a lot of notifications, and I get overwhelmed by it. So I don't like that feeling, because I feel like I'm going to be almost assaulted every time I open it. So now I just don't really open it at all. And however, if I do, and I start looking at the reels, and I start, like, watching them, I will get hooked. I'll fall into that loop, and I'll just rabbit hole, and I'll just fucking stay there, just fucking scrolling forever. So I stop the dopamine loop before it even happens. Like, I stop the kind of cue, and the cue being the push notification. The way I gamify my own life is I keep lists. I list everything out. I've got all the to-dos. My to-do list is so long, but the reason why I have such long to-do lists is because I set goals for the week. Not goals, I have, like, to-do, you know, and I'll have the things for the day, but then I'll also have that broken down by days of the week, and I will also have that broken down by projects and everything that I'm working on. So then on Monday, for example, I'll wake up in the morning, look at what my to-do is, move it to today, and then I will tick things off. So I get the cue of, okay, I get to create the list. Ooh, dopamine starts rising, because it's like, oh, I'm anticipating that I'm going to be able to tick these things off. I'm going to be able to go like, ooh, I'm going to be able to do this. So I do some smaller tasks, like kind of drink water in the morning, because that way I wake up in the morning, and the first thing I do is I look at my to-do list, and then the first thing is drink water. I drink water, boom, ticked it off. The goals are already starting. The goals are already being achieved. The dopamine loop has started. I'm already kind of on my way to kind of... Hopefully this makes sense if you're listening. Essentially what I'm trying to say is that you can kind of keep yourself motivated and disciplined by controlling your environment in a way that allows you to exploit these dopamine loops. I'm going to list out some useful techniques that I have learned that exploit the dopamine loops that I was trying to explain earlier on. I will try and cut out the nitty-gritty bullshit in between. The first technique is called the 2-minute rule. When starting feels like an impossible task, we create the 2-minute rule because what you want to do is you create a very, very easy goal to achieve. For example, let's say we're writing a book. I am going to write for 2 minutes. I do not need to write the whole book. I just need to write for 2 minutes. Maybe we're just working on an essay. Maybe we're just working on a chapter, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I can write for 2 minutes. So you set a 2-minute timer, you open your laptop, you start writing for 2 minutes. Because you have started writing for 2 minutes, this has started releasing dopamine into your system. Now remember, dopamine is the keep going chemical. It is the goal completion reward anticipation chemical. So it will start being released, and that will kind of get the momentum going. Remember what we said about the physics? You know, it's like once what is in motion stays in motion. The second technique that I have learned is time blocking. It can be really difficult for people in general, but especially when you have ADHD, to consistently task switch. So what we do is we time block ourselves. So that would be, for example, between 9 to 10, answer emails. Between 10 to 11, we're going to write so-and-so. And between 1 to 2, we're going to be editing clips, for example. Because the time becomes a cue for the behaviour, and this time blocking should be repeated throughout the week or whenever your days off are. It makes it much easier to complete that behaviour because it's where the ADHD brain and many other brains can be receptive to novelty and, you know, like things being different. When you time block yourself and that time block is repeated throughout the week, you both have the novelty within the day. I'm not doing the same thing all the time throughout the day, but you have the regularity throughout the week, so you don't have to obviously overthink what you're doing at all times every single day. Does that make sense? So if I know every single day from 9 till 10 o'clock I'm going to be writing, then it means when 9 o'clock comes around, it's like, oh, this is my writing hour. Boom. You like kind of fall into the task and start working on it. And then from 10 to 10:30, I'm going to be answering emails. Then that means that I know that what needs to be done is going to get done, which decreases anxiety, decreases cortisol levels, increases levels of dopamine because the tasks seem manageable, achievable, and something that can be repeatable throughout. So you can kind of carry on with it. The next technique is called RAIN mindfulness. RAIN is an acronym. Sometimes the barrier we feel isn't about effort, it's about the emotion that's behind it. So RAIN stands for recognize, allow, investigate, nurture. Recognize, allow, investigate, nurture. RAIN works on the principle that you recognize what you're feeling in that moment and you allow that feeling to come to the surface and you investigate what that feeling is and then you nurture it. So how this would work and function is that say I have to write a message to, I don't know, a producer about a project that I'm working on, but I'm procrastinating writing that message to that producer. And the reason why I'm procrastinating is because I'm scared. I'm scared of the rejection. I'm scared that if I get rejected, it's going to be an example of many other rejections I'm going to get in the future. So I don't want to face this because if I face this, I might need to face that other stuff. So I recognize what the fear is. I allow that fear to surface. I investigate what the actual fear is. A lot of fears, when they come to the light, they kind of disappear. Because, yeah, I might face one rejection, but that's not indicative that every kind of interaction I'm going to have is going to be a rejection. I nurture this feeling. Then I nurture this feeling and I kind of consolidate. I realize, okay, so this is what I kind of stop myself from catastrophizing. And once I've gone through this RAIN mindfulness, now the task doesn't seem as scary anymore. And maybe it's not fear, but whatever it is, it means that the task seems much more manageable and I can then move forward. That is to say, you acknowledge the resistance as opposed to trying to fight against it. The 12th card, I mean, I've already kind of talked about this. It's fucking design your environment in a way that allows for success. You know, if you need to work on something, when I was in uni, I had to put my phone in another room. I needed to make sure that there was music playing, but not music with words in it, because if there are words in it, then I'll start like kind of singing along. But I needed to have, you know, like those lo-fi beats to listen to and study with, yada, 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 yada. It's set up your environment for success. Just kind of get rid of any blocks, get rid of anything that will stop you from achieving what you need to achieve. The goal of controlling your environment is you need to try and make sure that good behavior is easier to achieve and bad behavior is harder to achieve. Set yourself up for success. In closing thoughts, the goal isn't perfect discipline. You're not going to have perfect discipline. It's about designing systems that work well with you and that you can work well with. Especially if you're trying to create a creative career or whatever it is, because creative careers take years and motivation lasts weeks at best. Fundamentally, if what your goal is extrinsic, i.e. money, fame, recognition, at some point you will not get enough of one of those things. And if you don't have that, and that has been your goal, you will trip up, slip, and stop. The people who last treat the work like normal behavior, not like something that requires constant effort, because that is... It's just too much. It's just too much. Also, fundamentally, there's something deeper underneath all of this. You don't build a life by chasing one goal. You build it by becoming someone and still living life fully outside of it. Because at some point you have to ask yourself, if everything is about becoming something, what is this all actually for? It's time for the HR breakdown. That's right, HR has broken down. This is the bit where I answer some questions, and this one I'm really excited about because it came as a comment on YouTube from this dude. I actually didn't write down what the dude's name is, so if you're watching this, then I will screen grab it and put it on the actual thing. But the question was, here's a question for a future episode. What advice do you have for dealing with the internal critic that can make one down tools and walk away from any project or idea? Keep up the good work. Oh, that's so nice. Whoever you are, dude, dudette, person, is whatever, whoever you are, you're fucking awesome. I really, really like this. Is funnily enough, I don't do this for recognition. I do this for myself. However, that doesn't mean that recognition, all that lot, isn't very, very welcome. And I'm glad that you've listened, and I'm glad that you feel like you're getting something out of this. In answer to your question, when you have that internal critic that's like, it kind of depends on what they're saying, but I assume it's something along the lines of like, what's the point? Why am I even trying? What are we doing? It's always take it back to the intrinsic motivation. Always remember, like, why did you get into this? What are you actually doing it for? Maybe it's okay that you put down the tools. Maybe it's okay that you move away from something. If you're trying to achieve something for some type of reward that you realize isn't actually fully kind of like satisfying to you, that isn't actually fulfilling for you, then fucking put those tools down and walk away. If the critic is that I'm not good, that I'm not worthwhile, I'm not going to achieve anything, then I would say take a moment, take a breather, and focus more on the process. Bring yourself down to not already being great, but the process of becoming great. It is pick up your tools, hammer away, practice your hammering until you're really, really good at hammering. And if you feel like you're not making progress, make your goals even smaller. If you're not making progress, just focus on the process. Maybe you're not moving forward, but you're putting in the hours. If your goal is, hey, maybe I'm thinking about hammers, I'm thinking about blacksmithing and all that kind of stuff. But maybe you make 100 shitty daggers, right? You've blacksmithed 100 shitty daggers. Well, then your next goal is make 100 more shitty daggers, because eventually you'll keep doing that, and one day you'll have made 100 daggers and only 99 of them are shitty, which means you technically didn't achieve a goal, but you did improve. It is all about reframing what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve into the process and the doing of it. Enjoy the process. Don't worry about what the outcome will be. That will come at some point, and maybe it won't. But even if it doesn't matter, because if you're enjoying the process itself is the reward. Always remember that. I hope that helps. I hope that's useful. And if not, then fuck it, I failed. And my next goal is going to be fail at least 6 more questions from the audience. That's going to be my goal. I'm going to do 20 in at least of these episodes. And then I'll revisit and see if I keep going. But I am enjoying this. And I was really struggling with my motivation. This is exactly a case in point to what I've been talking about throughout this entire episode. Now I don't want to stop. I found this so hard getting going, and I found this so hard kind of just sitting down and trying to do this, and I felt so worked up. But now I just feel that I could talk forever. And I feel like I want to record another episode. I want to prep the next episode. I'm not going to, because now what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to download the videos, and I'm going to try to edit them, because I only have a couple hours until I'm meeting a friend about another project that we're working on. But until then, I hope this episode has been useful to you. And Ira, when you're listening back to this, you fucking did it. Well done, buddy. Crack on, and let's go watch some Invincible while you set up how to edit this. If you did listen to this, so other people, I should probably do that sign out thing. If you've listened to this, thank you very, very much. You're greatly appreciated. Please like, comment, follow, subscribe. Do whatever the thing is on whatever platform it is to let the algorithm know that I'm alive. Because if I could turn this into a job, that'd be pretty nifty. Because I really like the people I work with at my day job, but I fundamentally do not give a fuck about the length of people's trousers anymore, and I'd love to leave that and do this just all the time. Because fucking capitalism! Ah! Fuck it! But don't fuck you. You're fucking awesome. Peace.